Missoula, Montana, one of my favorite places on earth. Made famous by the movie A River Runs Through It and known for its blue ribbon trout fishing. Home to Mary's Mountains cookies and the Notorious PIG, which are some of my favorite spots to eat at. But it is also home to the University of Montana. The Montana Grizzlies football program is one of the best at the FCS level and plays in one of the best stadiums in all of college football. This is the story of Montana football. This is the story of the greatest kept secret in all of college football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I am planning to release multiple videos a week this season. Also, let me know who you think will win the FCS National Championship this year in the comment section below. The 1995 national title game became extremely personal for that year's Grizz team. They were matching up with Division I AA powerhouse Marshall, who had NFL talent all over their roster. Marshall was not only hosting the game, but they were making their fourth appearance in 5 years. The day before the game, Marshall players showed up to a joint luncheon wearing shirts claiming they were 1995 national champions before the game even started. Montana players and coaches felt like Marshall was big-timing them. Head coach Don Reed told his players to remain vanilla, but heading into the game, the boys were fired up. Wide receiver Matt Wells told 406 Montana Sports, "It definitely motivated us. They really did believe that this was going to be a walk in the park, and we'd gotten lucky to be there, and they were going to win the game." But they hadn't gotten lucky. They had been building something special for years. Let's back up for a second and go back in time. Montana began playing football in 1897, only playing schools in the state, with their lone win coming against rival Montana State. In 1902, they helped form the NWIAA, or also known as the Northwestern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, along with Washington, Washington State, Oregon, Oregon State, Idaho, and Whitman. It would be 12 years until Montana won their first game in conference when they beat Washington State in 1914. The NWIAA would start to fall apart with the creation of the Pacific Coast Conference, and in 1924 the Grizz joined Washington, Oregon, and Idaho in said conference. They would remain a member of the Pacific Coast Conference until 1949, only winning 9 conference games and never getting to host a California team up in Missoula. Doug Fessenden became the first coach to remain at Montana for more than 5 years when he was named head coach in 1935, being the first coach to finish with a winning record, going 46-40-4 and going 9-1 against Montana State. In 1948, the Montana Board of Education would choose to vote to leave the PCC because it wanted to keep intercollegiate athletics properly subordinate to the academic function and seek to develop competition in all sports with institutions similar in purpose, size, resource, and academic standing. They would join the Mountain State Conference, aka the Skyline Conference, where they would remain members of this conference until 1962, never having a winning season and never winning more than 3 games until 1960. In 1963, Montana joined Gonzaga, Idaho, Idaho State, Weber State, and Montana State in forming the Big Sky Conference. Check out my video on the history of the conference in the description below. Montana struggled early on in the Big Sky Conference, only winning 9 games in their first 4 seasons and hitting rock bottom with a 1-9 record in 1966. Jack Swarthout became the Grizzlies head coach in 1967 and led them to a 51-41-1 record and a 3-6 record against Montana State. Swarthout was a former Grizz player and looked to rebuild his beloved program. He brought in Jack Elway as an assistant, and the team would go 7-3 in their first season. They would have back-to-back undefeated seasons in 69 and 70. They won their first 2 Big Sky titles, but lost in the Camellia Bowl to North Dakota State both years. Things were looking great for the Grizz until a disappointing 1971 season and a work-study scandal led to the ousting of Swarthout. In 1972, a federal grand jury returned a 32-count indictment charging 5 university officials and coaches, including Swarthout, with conspiring to illegally use federal aid money to pay for fictitious jobs for athletes. Swarthout was found not guilty, but public opinion had turned on him. Montana would return to being bottom dwellers for the next decade, only having one winning season. Enter Don Reed. Don Reed played college football at Sacramento State and served as the head coach for Portland State, Oregon, and Oregon Tech. During his second run at Portland State, he had won the Western Conference Championship after rebuilding a rough program. Reed would be hired to be the head coach of Montana in 1986, the same year Washington Grizzlies Stadium would open. Washington Grizz Stadium may be the crown jewel of FCS stadiums and is consistently viewed as one of the best stadiums in the Big Sky. Fans almost sit on top of the field with how steeply built it is, giving it an Autzen Stadium vibe. Bleacher Report wrote back in 2013, "The fans are just as rabid too. Only a couple select FCS teams enjoy as much of a home field advantage as the Grizzlies. The team could easily move up to the FBS level if it so desired, but chooses to stay at the FCS level, making the WA Grizz Stadium experience arguably the best in the FCS." During its opening season, the Grizz set attendance records in 1986, packing 26,856 fans in to see the Grizzlies beat the number 3 Bobcats 29-10. The stadium has a listed capacity of 25,217 and is always ranked towards the top of the FCS in attendance. In 2016, they drew more fans than 46 FBS teams and the Los Angeles Chargers of the NFL. The creation of Washington Grizz ushered in a new era of Grizzlies football. Don Reed quickly turned things around for the Grizz, going 6-4 in his first year as head coach. In 1988, they made their first appearance in the FCS playoffs, losing in the first round before going 11-3 and making it to the semifinals of the playoffs in 1989. According to 406 Montana Sports, this taught Reed and the rest of the program the types of players they needed to recruit. Although they continued putting together winning records, it would not be until 1993 when they won their first conference title since 1982, and the first outright Big Sky title since 1970. They went into their first round matchup against Delaware looking to go on a big playoff run, would have their hearts broken in a 49-48 loss. In 1994, they went 11-3, but losing in the semifinals once again after star quarterback Dave Dickinson got hurt. They went into the 1995 playoffs with a 9-2 record and the number 6 seed. They demolished everyone who came across their path: Eastern Kentucky 45-0, Georgia Southern 48-0, and Stephen F. Austin 70-14. All were the elite programs in the Division I AA level. They caught some breaks with upsets throughout the playoffs, getting to host everyone at home. Dickinson passed for 11 touchdowns and more than 1,200 yards, and he never played in the fourth quarter of any contest in the games leading up to the championship game. They had to travel to Huntington, West Virginia, home of Marshall, a predetermined location to take on Marshall. Marshall had a late lead before the All-American quarterback Dave Dickinson, who stood at 5'11 and 175 pounds and was from the Great Falls, Montana area, led a courageous 12-play 72-yard drive to set up the game-winning field goal. Final score: Montana 22, Marshall 20. Dickinson would win the Walter Payton Award and go on to play in the CFL. Reed would retire after the season and would be replaced by Mike Dennehy, and in 1996 they returned to the national title game, this time losing to Marshall, finishing the year 14-1. Dennehy would go 39-12 in 4 seasons as head coach, winning 3 Big Sky titles and making it to the playoffs every year. He would become the head coach of Utah State in 2000. Joe Glenn took over as head coach after leading Division II Northern Colorado to a national championship twice. He led Montana to back-to-back national title games, winning it all in 2001. In his third year, he saw the Grizz 16-game winning streak over the Bobcats come to an end. He left to become the head coach of Wyoming after the 2002 season. Bobby Houck would take over as head coach in 2003. While he was head coach, he led the Grizz to 7 straight Big Sky titles, 4 of which were shared titles, and 3 appearances in the national title game. He would leave to become the head coach of UNLV in 2010. Robin Pflugrad would be named the next head coach and put together a 13-7 record in 2 seasons, with the latter resulting in a share of the Big Sky title. Although they did finish the season going 11-3 that season, 5 wins would be vacated. He was selected over the likes of Brent Peace and David Doran. Many believe due to NCAA violations and off-the-field issues, he was informed he would not be returning as head coach in 2012. Yet there have been conflicting reports and never reported reasons behind his termination. Mick Delaney would be Montana's next head coach in 2012, putting together a 24-14 record over 3 seasons. Before the 2013 season, the NCAA found Montana guilty of multiple major infractions and one secondary infraction that all occurred before Delaney became head coach. He would retire after the 2014 season. 2015 saw the arrival of Bob Stitt. Stitt had put together a 108-62 record at the Colorado Mines before being named head coach at Montana. He led the Grizz to a 21-14 record in 3 seasons, including a 38-35 win over 4-time defending FCS national champions North Dakota State thanks to an 80-yard, 1 minute and 30-second scoring drive to end the game. Bobby Houck, a Missoula native and former Grizz player, controversially returned as head coach in 2018. He agreed to a 3-year contract through 2020 at the time. He led Montana at a 6-5 record in his first season back before a 10-4 record in 2019 and a 10-3 record in 2021. Both seasons resulted in quarterfinal runs in the playoffs. Last year they went 8-5 and made it to the second round of the playoffs. Led by a dominant defense and a pretty strong offense, the Grizz are putting together a special season up in Missoula and look on track to making the FCS playoffs for the 3rd straight year in a row. They went into the Kibbe Dome and beat Idaho in a tight game on ESPN2 and shut out Northern Colorado 40-0 to get their first shutout of the season. They look to have a team that could make a deep run in the playoffs, especially with FCS power North Dakota State having a down year. Montana football is a program and a football team I hope to see in person one of these days. They are one of the winningest programs at the FCS level and could be the next FCS powerhouse. They play rival Montana State in the Brawl of the Wild this Saturday. But what do you think? Who will win the FCS title this year? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more college football content. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.